a retired Wing Commander in the Royal Air Force, Andy Wilkinson. His experiences in Kenya, working in the Queen's Flight, working with the Duke of Edinburgh, among other amazing things. Hello and welcome to Traktion. My name is Pasil Telewa. I hope you enjoy Andy's story.
Things that you do to keep reminding me there's magic inside me and you. Dreams to reality. All of my worries and fears fade away with you. There is no limit to all of the things we can do.
I'm on my way to see Andy Wilkinson, a retired Wing Commander in the Royal Air Force.
A better place. Never wanna leave. Affection in a million ways. When you're next to me, all of my worries and fears fade away with you. There is no limit to all of the things we can do.
I really appreciate for making time to speak to us today.
You're more than welcome.
I understand you're a retired Wing Commander. Is that true?
That's correct, yes.
First of all, to begin with, who is a Wing Commander?
Well, Wing Commander, in theory, commands a number of squadrons. And it's fairly senior, second in line on a station, but within a command headquarters where I did most of my time, then you're just a few ranks down from the top.
You're quite experienced, Andy. There was a time when you were working in the Queen's Flight.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I went there at the beginning of 1964 until the end of 69. Before I was commissioned, I was an aircraft electrician, having been trained at our apprentice school at Halton, which is very well known across the world. And there we prepared the aircraft for flight, we serviced them, we did scheduled servicing as well, and also base servicing of components. So it was quite a fairly busy job, but we also had to accompany the aircraft on overseas trips.
On overseas trips with the Royals?
Well, yes, they'd be there, yes. And I did 3 trips with Prince Philip when he was President of World Wildlife.
The Duke of Edinburgh?
Yes, the Duke of Edinburgh. And he was, I did 1 to the Far East and 2 into Africa, 1 Ethiopia and then 1 Kenya and Uganda. I can't remember the exact dates of them, but they were whilst I was there.
How was Prince Philip conducting himself, your experience interacting with him, how was it for you?
Well, he was a very professional. He did every takeoff and landing, always, from the captain's seat. He was fully qualified as a pilot on our aircraft. And yes, he was very, very good at that. But once he'd taken off and everything, then he'd leave either the pilot or the co-pilot up there watching the controls, and he would then come back, and he would sit in the same compartment as the three crew. We had 3 ground crew, 3 air crew on the aircraft. And the ground crew was 1 electrical, 1 airframe and 1 engine technician. So that was the sort of size of the 6 of us all together on the aircraft.
Was there anybody to prepare the prince's meals?
No, well, that was up to us. He wouldn't carry a steward. He just had a detective and a valet with him. And so we, the 3 ground crew, it was generally cold food. It would be sandwiches and that sort of thing, because it would be during the day that we were flying. I don't recall we landed sometimes at dusk or just after dark, but generally speaking, it was during the day that we were doing most of our flying. So it was drinks and sandwiches and that sort of food that I would have to order as the electrician, because after we've flown, the engine and airframe people had quite a lot of work to do, cleaning and getting the aircraft. I had to clean all the inside of the aircraft, hoover it, things, and we do our after-flight checks, but we had to refuel depending how much fuel was wanted the next day.
Perhaps more interaction with him, especially in the flight. How was he like?
Well, he's very relaxed, and we chatted. We were all in the same 8-seat compartment, so we talked about all sorts of things as chaps would do, really. And he was, very, very approachable and everything. He just relaxed. And I can remember one time, I was standing in the gangway just by the galley, which is opposite the front toilet towards the flight deck. And he came out of the toilet. Instead of using the royal one at the back of the aircraft, he used the same one we used. And he looked at the galley and said, "How do you drive this bloody thing?" And so I sort of showed him, and he finished up making us all coffee.
He made his own coffee?
Well, he did that time.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, under tuition.
Or did he know how to use those machines?
Oh, yeah, he knew. Once I showed him where the various bits were, showed him the fridge and things. But once he'd done all that, then yes, he just went ahead, and all of us who were there, including his valet and detective, all got a coffee.
Did you ever, at one point, get different treatment just by the fact that you usually hang around the royal family?
No, it was he treated us all as human beings. He didn't treat us any differently.
We understand there's a lot of protocol, Andy, when it comes to the royals. What sort of protocol is involved in all of that? The things us the ordinary people would consider quite ordinary, quite usual, yet they were unusual to them, and they had to follow a specific way of doing it.
Oh, you had to. Obviously, on the ground, when there were cameras and things, it had to be absolutely perfect. And we had no contact, really. Once the air stairs at the back of the aircraft had gone down, we then opened the front door, the crew door, and put our ladder down and got on with what we had to do. But we always did that after his car had left. So we had no contact with him on the ground, really, at all, ever. It was, the first we saw was when he got on the aircraft, we retracted the air stairs at the back.
Take me way back on how and when you started working.
In the Royal Air Force?
Yes.
Oh, I started off as an apprentice at RAF Halton. The apprenticeship scheme started in 1922. And there were thousands of apprentices trained there. I trained as an electrical fitter aircraft, and it was 3 years, from 1959 to 62.
How was it working in the Queen's flight?
Well, very high standards, obviously, and everything had to be perfect. But it was very satisfying, and when we put the aircraft out on the line and they went off with their trips. Everyone was happy.
Tell me, when you're talking about everything has to be perfect, because not everyone has interacted with the Queen.
Well, from my side, the aircraft had to be fully 100% serviceable. And then others, the stewards had to make sure the inside was immaculate, and the toilets were perfect, and that sort of thing. They had the food and other bits that they needed. So it was a big team effort, really, across a large number of people.
You understand we are at a phase whereby we're still mourning the departure of Queen Elizabeth II.
Yes.
How does that make you feel?
I was very, very sad to see her passing. I met her to speak to 3 times, and yes, it's very different, I think, now. But I think King Charles III will step up to the mark fully.
Absolutely.
I have met him.
Absolutely. How was your interaction like with her?
Oh, very positive. She's very, very easy to speak to. Obviously, one has it's Your Majesty and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, she would invariably start the conversation going, because you'd be fairly nervous. Mm-hmm. But no, every time it was very easy, and she asked very pertinent questions and asked about family and where we lived and that sort of thing. There were 2 of them. I was with my late wife. So it was very interesting.
You also had an experience with the Duke of Edinburgh. How was your interaction like?
Well, formal, but no, it was. He was very easy going. He when we were flying, I did at least 3 trips with him when he was president of World Wildlife in the 60s, and he would sit. He'd do every takeoff and landing, and in the captain's seat, mm-hmm. and he'd sit with us in the cabin when we were flying, and so we just chat. And he only travelled with 2 personal staff, so it was us and him almost.
You told me actually you used to refer to him as a son. How are you referring to him?
Oh, it's sir always, but he would call us by our names. No, it was always he was unspoken, so you didn't relax on that one at all.
I mean, once the aircraft lands.
Oh, when the aircraft landed, then you had to bear in mind there were TV cameras and everything else, mm-hmm. so everything had to be absolutely spot on.
Talking about the TVs and cameras, did that ever feel you like, being in that sort of environment really exposed you to the public?
Not really, no. I don't think we ever took any real notice of it. I mean, we were obviously told it was our role that we performed. We had white overalls that we wore when we were on the ground, and we just got on with our job, really. Occasionally we'd stand by the royal steps at the back, the air stairs. Sometimes the navigator did it. It depended on the crew, really, and how it went. Mm-hmm. But no, it was always, it was always very formal on the ground, extremely so.
Andy, I really understand that in the Royal Air Force you guys flew quite a lot. I'm particularly interested in your flights to Africa and specifically Kenya. Could you give me an experience of how it was for you and what you remember? Because I understand it was many years ago.
Well, we obviously came into Kisumu over Lake Victoria, so we got a very good view there. It was just, it was how lush and green it all was there. And we also stayed in Nairobi for another part of that trip for a couple of nights. But Kisumu, I remember the hotel there with this wonderful green lawn. And we were able to retire for sort of a gin and tonic there before we went in for dinner. Mm-hmm. So it was really very pleasant. But when we were out each time, we really only saw airstrips. We didn't actually see much of towns and villages and people because we had to stay with the aircraft all the time. So my knowledge of rural Kenyan life is not very good because I just didn't visit those parts.
Would you love to visit, perhaps, to experience
I'd have
it?
liked to have gone and seen a lot more. Yes, it just looked so lovely. It was a wonderful place, and everyone was so friendly. I really did enjoy the time there. It was very nice.
You told me you have quite a lot to show me, so perhaps you could lead the way so that you give me bits of your history with the royal family.
Certainly.
As we talk about your personal life. Tell me, where were you born? Where did you school? And your family, how many children do you have?
Right. Oh, I can't see now. Well, I was born in Cumberland, Penrith, as my father was, and grandfather, great-grandfather, going all the way back, come from that area. And sadly, my mother died when I was 4, so I stayed with my paternal grandparents for a while whilst my father remarried. And I had a younger brother and sister as well with me there then. And then my father was based in London, working in London. And we had a house in Romford in Essex, was Essex then. And we moved down to that house. And I started school in St Edward's School in Romford. We then, in 1951, moved to Hornchurch, which is the next town, essentially. And much bigger house, because by then there were 5 of us, not 3. And I stayed there then until I joined the Air Force at the age of 16.
Was Air Force what you wanted to do from an early age?
Well, what I wanted to do, my next door neighbour was a BBC engineer, sound engineer. And he really got me very interested in electricity, in electrics. So I wanted to do that. I left school at 16 and then went to RAF Halton as an apprentice. Did 3 years learning the trade, and then afterwards went out to practice it. So it was an interesting time.
Quite lovely there.
Picture of when the Queen came to Benson to the Queen's flight, with me talking to her and Prince Philip. That was the first time I met her. And then this one was later, after I'd retired.
Yeah.
Well, after I'd retired, when the present King Charles III invited us all to dinner at the St James's Palace. And he obviously came round and spoke to us all at length. So we were able to tell him all about how we were there. And I'm pictured there with some other pilots.
This is in 2007.
Yes. Well, in fact, I still have another lunch in a couple of weeks' time in London.
You've been invited?
Not with the royal family. But
Great. I can see your MB, actually. For those who don't know what MB is.
Member of the British Empire, or member of the Order, the most excellent order of the British Empire.
Great.
That's the medal. And it was the one that the Queen presented me with and hung on my uniform.
Congratulations. You'll share with me pictures of you in uniform. I understand he also presented you with
No,
this.
that was just the flight. When you leave the flight.
When you leave the flight, this is what you're given.
You're presented. You actually paid for it because we paid a weekly subscription which covered our tea and coffee breaks. And at the end of it, we got the tankard.
Yes,
when
the
we left.
tankard. I was fascinated about your tie, your necktie.
Yes.
You still have the Queen's flight, souvenirs. It's amazing. I love it.
Yes.
Tell me, are these things you hold quite dear to you?
I think so, yes. It was a very proud part of my career. This is what was on the side of the aircraft. Of course, this is the badge we had on both sides of the nose of the aircraft, and one by the Royal Steps at the back. I do a lot of singing, do light opera. In fact, I'm performing tomorrow night in Bingley, doing Gilbert and Sullivan's Patience. And it's a show we've toured. It goes to 5 locations, and Bingley will be the 4th. And we tour with complete scenery, with a 11-piece band, orchestra, and it's great fun, really. And I enjoy that. And I'm also a member of other societies and sing with them. So I think that's a big part of my life. And I also do a lot of fundraising for the hospital.
Talking about fundraising for the hospital, Andy, I'd love for you to point out specifically this fundraiser that I read about you. And if I remember too well, you won an award for having donated the highest amount of money.
We have raised over £2 million whilst we've been doing these. Friends of Harrogate Hospital were formed in 1966, and I joined in 1978 when I moved to Harrogate. And since then we've continued raising money, and we still do, and I chaired the group until only a couple of months ago. So it's been quite a busy time. And our biggest fundraiser was to enable us to get an MRI scanner in our hospital. This was some time ago now. And we raised £250,000 for that to build the building that it went into.
Wow, congratulations.
So that was a big fundraising effort. But we still do a lot of fundraising in the local community.
Thank you so much for your time, Andy.
You're more than welcome. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
That's my late wife, Anne, a Sheffield-born lady who's brilliant. She was super bringing up the children. She was wonderful. I really miss her now. She died nearly 7 years ago.
Sorry to hear
With
that.
cancer. And that is my son. Second son took that picture in Christchurch in New Zealand with his 4 children.
Oh, I see.
And that was just after the earthquake there, so you can see all the scaffolding in the background.
Great. How many grandkids do you have?
And how many?
How many grandchildren do you
I
have?
have 11 grandchildren. I have 4 children.
It looks like you influenced quite a number of your family.
Well, my son Richie, who's in the Navy, he's on deployment at the moment, actually. And
Is Richard among these?
he is the tall one. He's now a lieutenant commander. And Matthew, on the other side of me, is a nephew who's my brother's son, and he's a brigadier in the army, still serving. Well, that's me and my 4 children. So taken a little while ago up at Bowman Rocks.
This is a beautiful family you have.
Yes, it's a fairly recent picture, that one. I have 3 sons and a daughter. Well, that's them a little bit longer ago. But yes, they're all very active. 3 of them live in the south of England. And then at the top row is Harry, who's the oldest. He's at university now.
What would you tell to the young people, the younger generation? Perhaps what you consider right now as your grandkids, what advice would you give to them?
Well, certainly I think education is core to everything. Even if you're working after school, after college, get some experience, get a curriculum vitae that is worth having, and you'll then progress in life.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
That's all we had for you today. Thank you so much for watching Globe Traktion. Remember, when you have a story that you think is quite remarkable, don't hesitate.
write to us through globetraction@standardmedia.co.ke or DM us on our social media platforms at globetraction. You can also follow me at Pasil Tenewa on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all across the social media channels for more interaction or behind the scenes. Until then, I hope to catch up with you again. But as for now, bye-bye from the famous Harrogate Royal Hall.